How is your brand fitness? Your brand health? Are you standing up and standing out compared to the thousands of trainers, fitness instructors, health coaches, and yoga teachers who have flocked online since mid-March of 2020? I'm Deborah Atkinson. You're listening to the Voice for Fitness Professionals podcast, where I share marketing and sales strategies that are easy, enjoyable, even fun, so you can build a business and a life with freedom you love, especially in and beyond a pandemic. This episode is brought to you by the Flipping 50 Fitness Specialist. That is your choice for hormone balancing exercise for women in menopause, based on the methods and systems that I use at Flipping 50 for the first and the only membership site for women exclusively in menopause. I'll put the link in the show notes. And that intro was not meant to make you panic. My guest, in fact, is here to share tips about how to brand yourself and stand out. James Patrick is an award-winning photographer, best-selling author, entrepreneur, coach, podcast host, and public speaker based in Phoenix, Arizona. He's the founder of FITposium, an annual conference guiding fitness entrepreneurs to grow their careers. James has received a bevy of awards for his work as a photographer, marketer, and entrepreneur. Leveraging his diverse experience, James is presented on stages coast to coast in the United States and has been interviewed for numerous TV, radio, magazine, newspaper, and podcast features. James Patrick's mission is to create art and opportunity for others. James, thanks so much for being here with me today.
Deborah, so excited to have this conversation with you. Appreciate you so much. And I just have to say at the start how grateful I am that individuals like you show up to create shows like you're hosting right now to help people navigate what can be a very confusing landscape. We need more people like you, and just so grateful that you're here to do this show.
Well, ditto, and back to you. So I should let all listeners know, literally, this is how I met James, purely by accident. So not all opportunities are fruitful, but an opportunity came up. I'm in Scottsdale, have been here for a year, and I usually get started getting to know the community a lot sooner than I had. So I was buried in some projects, and I finally reached out to a local magazine and threw my name into the hat. And I was set to be featured in the October issue, went and got the photos done by James, and a day later realized that whole magazine was canceled and there will be no promo or no split. But I got to meet him. So it was meant to be. And his work is amazing. His name had actually come across my desk before. And so no accidents. I'm a big believer in that. But James, your work speaks for itself. And I'm going to link to some of your sites and some of your work so people can actually see that live in the show notes. And you are an amazing photographer. So I'm sure you are probably equally talented in all of the areas you are spending some time in. But let's dive in and help listeners in this moment that we're in. And even if you're listening to this long after the pandemic, James, many of our listeners are recreating businesses. Some of our students from universities are realizing their dreams of fitness careers, personal training, gym ownership is changing. Whether they like it or not, they're forced to market differently. Everyone is online. Yes, customers, but also competition, which are not only other trainers, classes, but let's face it, anything that's taking a customer's attention. So let's talk about branding and standing out from the basics. Can I get your take? What is branding?
And I'm so glad you brought up the fact that the industry is shifting right now. And I think it's important to acknowledge that and to acknowledge how stressful that can be. Because what I don't want is, I don't want to sit here and just be one of those coaches who says, well, if you're not successful, it's just because you're not working hard enough and you don't have the right mindset, and just kind of pretend that 2020 did not rock everyone. It definitely did. And it's important to give ourselves grace for that. Like, energetically, this has been a traumatic readjustment. But it does not matter what industry you are in, fitness industry included. If you are anticipating an industry to always remain the same, you're in for a lot of obstacles in front of you. Industries are not built to be static. They are built to be dynamic. They are ever evolving. As you had mentioned that I've worked as a photographer now 20 years. When I started in photography, the big shift in photography was between film photography and digital photography. And there's so many photographers saying, you know what, real pros will never shoot with digital. Real pros use film. Well, what happened? Consumer behavior demanded digital assets, and thus photographers who shifted, who changed, who evolved into digital photography won, and photographers who kind of held on to what used to be became irrelevant. I saw the same thing when social media popped up, and photographer says, you know what, clients will never use, back in that MySpace, clients will never use MySpace to hire a photographer. Well, they sure as hell did. And unless you adapted and got in front of clients where they wanted to find you, you became irrelevant. And I saw the same thing happen in the recession in 2008. And I would sit in meetings with other photographers and they would complain. They would complain, oh, all these new photographers coming into the industry, they're ruining the business. And now, if this sounds familiar in the fitness industry, yes, all these young personal trainers coming in, ruining the business. They're undercharging. They're giving away too much. They're doing way more than they should be doing, and they're ruining rates. No, 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 no. You have it backwards. Just like young photographers weren't ruining in 2008. Consumer behavior and consumers were demanding something different. And it was the more agile or the newer photographers, or photographers who weren't fully trenched in and rooted into old habits, who were able to adapt faster, learn what clients wanted, and delivered it to them. So it's important to understand that this industry will forever be changed. Now, every now and then you'll have an industry have its landscape completely wiped out. That was 2020. Now, what happens when an industry gets wiped out, when the landscape gets erased, is a couple things. One is a lot of entrepreneurs like us are feeling, well, what do we do now? Because anything we did before doesn't apply and doesn't work anymore. But also, and this is important, it means we are all now on an equal playing field. So it doesn't matter if you've been running that multi-six-figure business and absolutely crushing it. Your playing field just got leveled and neutralized to the person who's just starting out, which means if you're just starting out, you have an opportunity to accelerate leaps and bounds ahead of what you used to be able to do before at a fraction of the investment that you used to be able to do it at. Times like these are great times for building and for rapid growth in your brand awareness, in your client acquisition, because costs have plummeted so much to do things that last year at the same time cost us 4 times more, 5 times more. So I just wanted to set that stage. And now to address your question of like, what is branding? And the way I kind of look at branding is it's not your logo, it's not your aesthetic design. Yes, those are elements and pieces of it, but really what the brand is at its core is a brand. Think of it as like an emotional aftertaste. Your brand is what people say about you and think about you when you are not in the room, when you are not part of the conversation. Okay, that's your brand. So how you own your brand is that unapologetic stance of a couple things. This is who I am. This is what I do, but most importantly, this is why it matters in the context of your life. And if you could answer that third question, why what I do matters in the context of your life, that will leave the proper aftertaste in the mind or in the eye of your prospect.
Love it. Love it. And I felt like I should be playing Chariots of Fire in that first setup. So that was awesome. Okay, so let's do this. So let's put it in real terms and in your own terms. So if I asked you, what's your brand as James Patrick photographer?
as James Patrick Photographer, because it's different than James Patrick Coach. As James Patrick Photography, the brand is very clear. I do sports portraiture. Sports portrait. It's a very niche down specific brand. And to take it one step further, I am not the photographer who takes photos. And that's something we say a lot. I do not take photos. And that kind of like, what do you mean you don't take photos? And I say that any photographer can take photos. And in fact, most photographers can take really good looking photos. The reason I don't take photos is because I make images that work. And I know I make images that work because I have experience making images that work. And making images that work means I understand my client, I understand their needs, I understand the use of the photo, and I understand how to make the photo that will get them to achieve their needs. So it's not just taking the best looking photo, because if it was just the best looking photo, there's always someone who's more creative than me around the corner. But if I can say, listen, I've shot 500 magazine covers in my career. And the reason is because I know how to make a magazine cover that sells more magazines. I've been hired to shoot some substantial ad campaigns. Why? Because I know how to make the images that are going to get your product or your service purchased by your ideal client. And the way I know that, the reason I know that and why it's part of my brand is my first job as a photographer was working as the person who hired photographers. My first job as a photographer is I was the photo editor of a newspaper. So I had to hire photographers and I had to manage photographers and understand what images were going to land on the front page of the paper or what images land on the third page of the paper. My second job was I was the photo editor of a startup magazine. Once again, had to manage photographers. What image lands the cover? What image lands on this page? What image lands on this page? I spent 7 years in marketing, had to hire a lot of photographers when I worked my marketing job, building the visual assets of our brand. So I know how to make images that work because I used to be the end client who had to hire the photographer to make those images.
So love what you said. Okay, so there's a couple of things that I want to pull out of here. So listeners, I think you probably got this, but I'm not sure you realize you got this. So one of the things that James didn't mention about his brand is that he is so confident that what he says, you're going to believe. Did you catch that? Did you feel it? I mean, there's emotion behind every word that he said since he started talking. Did you catch it? And it's contagious. Did you catch that? So my voice and energy up leveled to actually match his. That's a skill. That's a part of his brand. But the other thing that you said that distinguished you from other options, okay, other photographers, because let's say you don't have any competition because you do something so very different. So a lot of photographers that I've worked with have been great. They've been good. But what they would say is something like, I will make you look great. Mm-hmm. I will make you look amazing. They didn't say what you said. I know how to take photos that gets more sales. Mm-hmm. There's a big difference. If you're a business owner, you understood and you heard that difference. So if you're really thinking, and I encourage you to know now that anything he says, the rest of this episode is going to be gold, but not just for the surface value. There's a message behind the message. I'm sure of that already. Okay. All right. So there's a lot of trainers and potentially health coaches. So I don't want to leave any of you out who have different titles, but fitness professionals, let's say, that are wondering, how do I stand out in this sea? How do I do what you did with yourself as a photographer right there in my images first? So if somebody's scrolling through timelines, how do I first become a brand that will make them pause for even a moment?
Mm-hmm. I don't want to advocate this idea because, okay, it's so easy to look at the industry and say it's so oversaturated. Well, of course, every industry is. Don't try to stand out in an oversaturated industry. Find the subset of the industry that you can stand out in, that you can own. And I appreciate that you pointed out like my enthusiasm when I talk about things. It's because I've developed this ethos of being unapologetic. I'm not going to apologize for the work that I know I do, for the benefits that I know I provide, and for the results that I guarantee that I get my clients. Okay, that is that really that methodology of being unapologetic. I'm going to own this position. Now, when it comes to standing out in that niche, in that sub niche, like I will not say that, if someone came to me and they said, we want you to photograph our home because we want to get our home featured in Home and Garden magazine, chances are I'm not the photographer for you. It's just wouldn't work. When people come to me and says, I'm looking for some good lifestyle photos so I can build my social media presence. And, I'm thinking about like going into a downtown area and shooting these brightly lit, kind of overexposed photos. I'm once again not the photographer for you. And I'm happy to send you to someone else because I cannot provide you what you want. And that's why I asked what your goals are. But I know who my audience is. So that's the first step is, who is this for? Who am I trying to reach? And if the fear is, well, if I niche down too much, it's just going to turn people away. No, 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 no. When I niche down, I say I do sports portraiture, I do fitness photography. My client knows it's for them. They know it right away. There's no confusion here. I'm not saying, well, I do sports photography. I also do architecture. I do food and beverage. No. This is what I do. Okay. So you're a trainer. Who are you here to serve? And you have to zero in on them. And when you write your everything, your marketing messages, your website, your brand copy, you're not writing to a group of people. You're writing to one specific person, that person in your mind's eye that this was created for. Now, here's the interesting thing. When you zero in on that person, so much so that you know everything about this person, all right, this idea, this avatar that you've constructed, is if I'm reading your messages, I will graft onto any component of what you wrote that I thought applies to me. And I'll be like, oh my gosh, it's like Deborah was writing just to me. Wow, Deborah must be in my head. Now, Deborah was writing to her own avatar. I just grafted to what about what she was saying resonated with me. Okay, so first, you really have to niche down and understand who is this for specifically. And you have to go a step further to see what are the pain points that this individual has. What are they at right now in their life? Where are they? What are they feeling? What are they suffering with? What are they struggling with? What is their obstacle? All right. What are their pain points? And you list all these things out. So if you were to take a piece of paper, your first column is just where this person is today. Okay. And you list it out in as much detail with as many adjectives as you can come up with. From there, you go to the other end of the paper. So the third section of the paper, just split in threes. The third section is their aspirational identity. Who do they want to be at the end of whatever this is? Okay, so in the future. Now, future is 12 weeks. It's, whatever it is to them. Okay, well, maybe they move from stuck to unstuck. Maybe they move from lacking confidence to unapologetic. Maybe they move from unmotivated to highly motivated. Maybe they move from unclear to being laser focused. Okay, but you have to identify the aspirational identity. This is what they want to be. And every person has an aspirational identity that we are trying to tap into. In the health and fitness industry, maybe it's to feel ageless. Maybe it's to reclaim youth. Maybe it is to be in the best shape of their lives. Maybe it's to live longer. You can come up with these aspirational identities, what it is that they want. Now, that middle section is what you do to bridge this gap. Your marketing, your language, your copy comes in how you get them from where they are today to where they want to be tomorrow. So, and I'll peel back the curtain. I'll give a very specific example. We had launched a program earlier this year that was to help entrepreneurs get up and running during a down economy. So the pain points, they lost income. They're struggling to get momentum. They're confused. They may have lost their job. They're very unclear and uncertain about what steps to take. They've never launched a business before. These are all the places where they are now. Where do they want to be at the end of 8 weeks? It was an 8-week course. They want to have income, fast income. They want to learn how to accelerate growth. They want to build something that can scale. They want to have confidence. They want to get to that first sale, which will give them the clarity to know they can get another sale. Okay. Then the gap that middle part, because we're bridging the gap, is what we're creating, what we're crafting, what we're cultivating, our plan, our approach, our program, our service, our product, whatever it is for you, and what it does to bridge that gap. And you had brought something up earlier, which is how we sell what we sell. We're not selling the features of what we're saying. That'd be like me going to you and say, Deborah, you should hire me because my camera is a 40 megapixel camera. My lights do 9 stops of dynamic range. You're just like, I don't care. I don't even know what that means. But I would say, Deborah, are you looking to earn media? Because I can help you get published. That's me knowing where you are today, knowing your aspirational identity. I want to extend my brand message to get it into the media. I can make the images that can help you do that right there. Knowing the pain point, knowing the aspirational identity, bridge that gap.
Sweet. Yes. Okay. So I want to kind of talk about this thing that a lot of trainers fall into this trap. And part of this is, a monkey see, monkey do feel. We think, oh, well, somebody has all these followers and all of these fans on Instagram or on Facebook or wherever you're hanging out right now. And ideally hope that's not where you want to hang out, but that is where your customers want to hang out because that's where you need to be. But there is this want to kind of mimic or just copycat somebody else. And then it feels very fake or inauthentic. And or people are just feeling like they have to be bigger than life on social media because, of course, everybody's happier, thinner, and more, making more money on social media than they actually are in real life. But how do you get a trainer through that? And you just brought up a great step-by-step. But if you've got a trainer who's stuck in that, and that's what they're doing, they're actually never real. They're never going on, just showing up. How do you get them over that hump? And why do you think that is such a default for so many trainers?
I think it's because social media is indicative of the greatest hits of our lives. We don't post B tracks to social media. We're not posting our outtakes. And to, I keep diving back to the photo metaphor, but when I shoot a magazine cover, one image lands on the cover. That's my social media post. What you do not see are the 2,000 images I took to get the one cover. Okay, we don't post those. We don't post the outtakes, right? We only share the one thing. So it's easy to look at someone's social media and say, wow, they have it all together. They have the business, they have the, whatever it is, right? But this is just the greatest hits. You are not seeing the outtakes. You are not seeing the things that did not work. You are just seeing the culled down or the edited version of whatever it is they chose to show you, okay? But that aside, the thing about social media is when I'm on Instagram, I am not holding my credit card. And my guess is no one else in the world is either, because you don't go to Instagram to shop. Okay. When I'm on Facebook, I don't have a checkbook in front of me. Because once again, unless I'm on Facebook Marketplace, I'm not on Facebook to buy things. What are we on social media for? We're on social media for one of really 3 reasons. 4 reasons. One is we want to be entertained. So we follow accounts that entertain us. Okay, that bring us joy or entertainment into our existence. We follow accounts that inform us. So we follow things that we want to be educated by. And then the third thing is we follow things that inspire us. Okay. Now, the fourth thing I'd add in with an asterisk is we go to social media to connect, to build community. Okay. Now, none of those things were purchase. None of those things were purchased. And a mistake I see is people see high follower numbers and correlate that to high sales ratios. And I got to tell you, I've been coaching for a long time. I don't see that happening. And in fact, most people I know who have massive followings are not making any money because they've not figured out, they figured out at some point how to hack the system or to beat the algorithm and garner a large number of followers if they did it ethically. Let's just assume they did. but they're not figuring out how that translates into sales. Whereas I'll have clients who might not even have 1,000 followers, but they're making $500,000 in revenue. Okay. It's
Yeah.
all about what you're doing with your audience. Your audience, you have to understand that the consumer has to go through a journey to do business with you. The first step of the journey is awareness. Now, that's your social media number, is how many people might know you exist. But just because I know you exist does not mean I like you enough or I trust you enough to do business with you. I just know you exist. All right. That's an empty follower. That's that person with a couple 100,000 followers who is completely flat broke because they've not figured out how to move people from the awareness phase to the next phase. Now, the next phase is value. What value do you give? Now, if you know who your customer avatar is, you know what their problems are, and you know what their aspirational identity is, your value is the solutions you provide, the information you provide, the inspiration you provide, that maybe it's even the entertainment you provide that moves them from where they are today to where they want to be tomorrow. So you use your channel to give people the insights, the resources, the value that does two things. One, it builds massive trust with them. I trust you because you're showing up. I trust you because you're giving value. I trust you because you're here to teach or to educate or to inspire or to lift me up or even to entertain, right? But yet you're not really selling. Why? Because I'm not even holding my credit card. I'm not here to be sold to. And if you build enough value with me, that rapport grows, that trust goes, so that when you do have a call to action, I'm significantly more likely to take that call to action because I now like and trust you. I don't just know you exist. So that second phase is the value phase. Then you can encourage people to do one of two next steps. And the goal of social media is to get people off social media, by the way,
Right.
because once again, we're not buying on there. So you have to get us off of there. And if you get us off social media, that shows that we liked you and trusted you enough to click something we would not have clicked otherwise. And that's usually the CTA or the link in bio, whatever that is. Okay. So you got us to click that because we trusted you enough to do one of two things. And those one of two things are, one, purchase from you. Okay. Which is a big jump. Okay. That's a big jump from just knowing you to building trust with you to purchasing from you. Or you could add in a step in between, which is I have a free gift for you. You can have a lead magnet, a free tool, a free resource, free ebook, free download, free webinar, free course, free trial. If you just sign up right here. And I might not trust you enough to buy from you yet, but I sure as heck trust you enough to get this free thing from you where all I have to do is give you my name and my email address or my name and my phone number. And that's one of the things we kind of led off the show with, where 2020, despite how much chaos has happened in 2020 has been one of the best years for audience acquisition. When I talk about audience acquisition, I don't talk about growing your Instagram following. I talk about growing your email list, or if you do SMS lists, growing your actual prospect list. It has not been cheaper in recent memory to do this.
Such a good point. And I think probably we've got a lot of personal trainers, health coaches, maybe new and younger entrepreneurs who literally didn't know they were going to be an entrepreneur right now, but maybe their gym is closing because that's a sad story for a lot who are not surviving right now. And I think that there is a lot of sudden need to, okay, I've got to be more of a business person. I've got to think about, how am I attracting my customers, or what you and I would call leads that will then become customers? And I want to go back to one thing that you mentioned and just lay this on you. I could love your comments on this too. So that know, like, and trust factor, and you've illustrated it so very well that they've got to like you first, they've got to trust you, but they also, I think, we need to spin the like piece in a slightly different light as well. So many of them, that transformation, that aspiration that they want is they want to be like you. So often that's who they'll begin following. They see something in you that stirs something in them. And I think we need to really realize that often we will establish a relationship easily with people who are quite a bit like us and want to be even more like us. They literally want to be you. If you're maybe that demonstration for them of fit, of confident, of highly energetic, of living your life in a certain way that they admire. I think we also have to talk about that. So they have to feel like they are a bit like you. What do you say to that,
Are you still there, Deborah? It seems like it
James?
cut out a bit.
What? Sorry.
It seems like it cut out a bit.
Yeah, where did you catch me? Where did it
Um,
cut?
you were just basically talking about like they have to create that connection with you, and they're kind of seeing themselves as you in a way, or aspiring to be like you in a way.
Yeah, let me start and I'll do that question over.
Sure.
Okay. So great points. I want to lay something on you from kind of back when you started talking, and you initially were talking about that 3-column assignment, and in that far column was that aspirational, that transformation. What do they want from where they are now? And I want to point out that you mentioned so very well they have to like you first, they have to trust you first, and then they'll come and follow you off of social media. But I also want to throw out, just for listeners, and I'd love your take on this, James, the like you is not just that they need to like you and think you're a good egg and follow you that way, but they also need to somewhat see themselves in you. They need to feel like they are a little like you. Like they may feel you're an excellent role model. You're the energy and you're the epitome of confidence, or maybe it's the body, but there usually is something further behind that. But they want to be like you, literally.
Mhm.
What do you say to that?
It's so funny, and it just shows how in tuned you are to really brand design and then brand architecture, because you're absolutely right. And spoiler alert, if you go and you create your customer avatar profile, more often than not, an overwhelming majority, when you go back and read it, you realize that your customer avatar is yourself like 10 years ago. Okay. Oftentimes you're trying to help ourselves because at a certain point in time, we wish, oh, if only there was someone that helped me when I needed the help. And that's what we end up creating. So the fact that you've identified yourself in the past as your customer avatar, of course, you're going to find people who want to gravitate to be where you are because it was who you were targeting to begin with. So I love that you see that full circle right there. And you're absolutely right. And how this plays into how we're showing up on social media, there's a couple schools of thought when it comes to social media, but overwhelmingly, if you are only posting about your work on social media. So if all I ever did was post, my photography, if all I ever did was post my photo work, I'm doing a disservice to my clients. If in my coaching practice, all I ever did was post about my clients and what my clients were doing and all the services we're offering, once again, I'm doing disservice because it's not really adding a human element behind what we're doing. People are not just purchasing your products and services, they're purchasing you. It's you that are showing up. It's you that we're investing in. So to give some glimpse into who you are, what your intentions are, why you chose to show up, why this matters to you, why you are the person that we need to trust. That is what is going to help us create this bond with you. And for everyone, it's a little bit different in how they choose to do it. And I would say, like, from an advice standpoint, look at your analytics, look at your insights to see which of your posts people are gravitating towards, what posts people are consuming. All right. And we do this a lot. We always look at the numbers because numbers don't lie. They show us what people want to see from us. And when we see what people want to see from us, we give them more of that. But we do have to mix up. So I don't want my channel to be completely monotone where it's just, here's my work, here's my work, here's my work, here's my work. Right? I want to reveal something of myself, and I will choose elements of my own life that I am comfortable integrating into my business persona. Okay. So there are certain elements, like I would say, like in my channels, I'll use my animals. My animals are an easy one. So the fact that I can post something about my animals, like I have a golden doodle, and people, when they look at a golden doodle, like, oh yeah, James has a golden doodle. I want that association. Or we just got a cat and my dog's name is Wrigley and my cat's name is Socks. Why? Because I'm from Chicago. So Chicago is another element of my personal life that I reveal a lot in my stories to humanize myself, but also to create an association that people know if they're flipping through channels and a Cubs game comes on, they're like, I wonder if James is watching this Cubs game. You bet your ass I'm watching that Cubs game. Absolutely I am. My love of the outdoors. My wife and I were big into outdoor. We love hiking. We love camping. We love kayaking and paddle, all the things, right? So that stuff will get integrated into my stories as well, because I want to create this human side of who I am outside of just the photographer or the business coach. So what is it about your life? And you could just choose a couple things. What is it about your life that you're comfortable sharing with your audience, or that would give context to why you choose to do what you do, or what it is about you that we want to connect with? That right there is a great way to mix into the other stuff that you're doing with your general content posting strategy. And I know there are a lot of different schools of thoughts when it comes to content posting strategy, and something I can dive into should you want. But it does help to show not just work, but that human element as well, because that right there, and when I do a personal post, or like a post about like my ethos or my intentions or my methodology or why I choose to do what I do, those posts overwhelmingly do so well compared to just posting my work.
Yeah, I realized that while you were talking. It's so very true. It's like they want to know the behind the scenes, and they want to know that your life is messy too, or that you love dogs, because that makes them have an affinity for you that they didn't know they had before. I will tell you, for listeners, that when I go on sans makeup with bedhead, those are the most popular videos. People appreciate that. And I will say that for you fitness professionals, not as true as when I'm talking larger numbers to my consumers, to the women who are flipping 50 and in the middle of menopause and chaos. They appreciate that I'm not coming on always polished, because most of them feel like their lives are falling apart. And knowing that, I put my pajamas on one leg at a time, just like they do, matters. So I love that you said that. Okay, Jane. Oh, go ahead.
I would add to that, like what it does is if everyone else is just posting their greatest hits, and you come, and I hate the word authenticity just because it's been so overused, but you come and you just show up in such a transparent way. You're like, no, this is what this really is. And this is who I really am. And this is how days, who else has felt like this? Who else has had days where you just could not, and when you come out like that, people are like, oh my God, yes. Yes, it's not just another overly polished greatest hits album, that this person's actually cutting through all the clutter. You talked about earlier how to stand out to the right people. This is how you stand out to the right people. If that's your target audience, and if that's what would resonate to them.
Yeah, love that. I can give a great illustration. Just a couple hours before we went on live live recording. How was that? But I did a Facebook Live, and technology being what it is, my guests could not get on. So here I was, we're there, and I actually had a great gathering for middle of the afternoon. And I thought, I got to run with this. So I've got them. I've opened it up, told them what I'm going to be talking about. She can't come on. I'm going to talk for the both of us and let them know this is what's happening. It's technology. And they're all like, oh, yes, we get it. Forehead slap. They were all like, yeah, high five. Way to go. You did a great job. And they're almost supporting you by being there and asking questions. And that feels good to people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we have this fear that everyone in the world is a naysayer, and they exist. There's no doubt about it. But overwhelmingly, your audience wants you to succeed, and they will be in your corner for you.
So true. Okay, so I'm hoping you're sitting down. Hardest question of the day. So we've got you here. You have a width and a breadth of experience. Is there a question I should have asked you, knowing we've got these trainers who are in this moment of their life? They're like on the edge thinking, this is such an opportunity, but I don't know exactly what to do.
Mhm.
What would you say?
Oh, wow. What a great question. Perhaps the best question, and I'll just say it's the best question I've ever been asked in an interview. And it's such a disarming way to reveal really a direction. And I would say, like, and I do lots of podcast interviews, and I run a podcast, and I'm interviewing people all day long, and you kind of hear a lot of the same messages a lot. And then when you start to look, you say, okay, people are saying one thing, but maybe they're doing something completely different to what they're saying. It's like, well, why are they saying one thing and doing another? And it's not that they're trying to be misleading. It's just that, hey, I'm selling this advice, but for myself and my brand, I'm doing this other thing. So I think, what's really great is when entrepreneurs or educators pull back the curtain and say, don't just do what we're saying, do what we're doing. So I can tell you exactly what we are doing right now in our marketing, because there's a few things that we've done is how we pivoted in 2020 that has really worked out for us. The first thing was whatever we were dealing with that involved massive in-person reliance, we had to pivot and we had to shift. So, for example, because you had brought up Jim, so I feel it's important to touch upon one of our biggest pieces, one of our cornerstone pieces was a giant in-person conference that we did every year. Well, that's not happening anytime soon. Okay.
Right.
So, how do we deliver something new and something different? So, one, it's giving that pause to reflect upon the service offerings and what you can deliver that solves your client's needs, because new needs have surfaced. Right? New needs have surfaced. So you have to identify what those new needs are and create the new service or the new solution. You're still in the same industry. And this is what we started. So we're kind of taking this full circle. This is what we started off with, 45 minutes ago, which is you have to have the pulse on your community. You have to have the pulse on your audience to be like, what do you need now? Where's your touch points now? So the first thing that I'd highly recommend is you have deep dive conversations with some of your top clients or your top aspirational clients, where you just say, listen, I'm doing some market research right now. I know the world has changed so much. I would like to jump on a 15-minute or 20-minute call with X number of people. And just to thank you for your call, I'll send you a $5 Starbucks gift card or whatever it is, right? So we started jumping on phone calls with our clients and then some clients that we were trying to land as well as our aspirational clients. And we started talking to them about where they were at within the industry, how the economy was treating them, what was happening with the quarantine, how it was impacting their business, what their new needs and concerns were. We are asking our clients what their pain points are. Why? So we know how to deliver to them next. Okay. So that's the first thing we did. So once again, don't just do what I say, do what we're doing. Next thing we did is we looked at every opportunity for audience acquisition and for list building. And I hit upon this earlier. It has not been this affordable to list build in a very long time. When I say list build, is getting people from social media into an email list or from social media into an SMS list. Why? Because guess what? You do not own your Instagram following. And the algorithm shifted once they released the Reels. And now if you're not on Reels posting a bunch of Reels, your posts are being suppressed below 1%. And that's really frustrating if you spent all this time building this massive social media following and now you can't even get your posts in front of everyone. You're like, what's the point, right? Well, guess what? When Instagram's not working, I can send an email out to X number of thousands of people and get that open. If I send out good emails, they get open. I have my podcast, which we've been growing our podcast downloads. And guess what? There's no algorithm suppressing my podcast. If I put out good podcasts, people download the podcast. So we build our audiences in the places we control. So you have two types of audiences. You have audiences you rent and audiences you own. Social media is an audience you rent. You do not own that audience. It can be taken from you in an instance. Ask anyone who spent their life building a MySpace page. Okay. It will go away and you don't have it anymore. Now, audiences you own, that's your email list, that's your client list, that's your mailing list, that's your SMS list. You own that list. And right now is a great time to build that list because people are paying attention right now. Everyone's kind of stuck at home. Even 8 months later, we're still kind of stuck at home searching for things, looking for things. And if you're providing solutions or guides or resources, I'm going to opt into that list because you're giving me something that I need. So we talked about having conversations with your clients, finding out their new needs and list building. Those are the big things I would say. Like, don't just do what we're suggesting, do what we're actually doing. And those are the things that we've been doing aggressively in 2020.
So awesome. And I so apologize for that noise because I had to run and go see if you're doing reels on Instagram. That's what I was watching your cat. Okay. So very good. You jumped on it. I love it. James, thanks so much. You and I feel like I could go on and talk to you for a long time. And we could cover a lot of ground here. So I'd love to have you come back. Do I have a yes on that? Because I can't let you go
without question. Yes, you and I we're so simpatico in our mindsets and our approaches, and I would love to have another conversation with you.
So awesome, listeners. If you have a question that we didn't answer today, put it in the show notes. So what are your questions on today's topic, branding for fitness professionals in this moment we're in? Leave them in the comments. That will be at fitnessmarketingmastery.com/branding you. No spaces, no dashes. And I'd love to hear from you. What would you like to hear from us more about here on the Voice for Fitness Professionals podcast? What is your biggest challenge right now? And have a deeper question for you. Is part of your challenge not knowing what your biggest challenge is? That in itself is a problem. We're going to talk a little bit more about that in the next episode. What are you waiting for? The world needs you right now more than ever.